Welcome back to the Pro Continental Tour preview for the PCM Daily Management Game 2024, where we look at every team that is present in the Pro Continental Tour, go alphabetically through the teams and check out whether they can win it all, are in promotion reigns, are long shots for promotion, are a solid mid-table team, are in danger territory, or are fighting to stay up to stay in the Pro Continental Tour. We've got a very wild mix of teams in here, and we start with the team of Kaiser Adler. Which is Benetton BMX Cycling, a Samarines team, which also has got Mexican influence, which we can only see with David Rubalcaba-Reyes as a talent. But apart from that, this team is all about stage racing. At least that's what it seems with the squad, which is led by Rafael Reis in his final year of prime. Rafael Reis, a rider that had really awful seasons, but also had really good seasons. This PCM seems to be kind of nice to him, so he did, or at least he did well, and he could do well. Then the team obviously added Nelson Paulus, which is a fantastic addition to the team. Nelson Paulus has got this very interesting skill set of climbing and time trials, but also got enough acceleration to be good in terms of time trialist, has decent backups, decent flat, so he's a rider that will be liked by the engine, I'm pretty sure. Other than that, the time trial team could be better. They got Luke Durbridge as a signing, who's on decent wage, and he can score in time trials definitely, so the team will surely go for time trials. They don't really have a dangerous team time trial squad. They at least got Lukas Talachka and Samuel Pöckele, which are decent enough to do well, but not very frightening in terms of what they can do. Interestingly, the team kind of neglects or fully neglects the cobbles, or at least only gives the options to their more exotic riders like Bonello and Dadu to score there, or not score, but make a name of themselves. Probably Elias Affewerki could do a job in semi-classics with his overlooked 69 cobbles. And they also basically neglected hills because Loak Fliege is not that bad, but he's not a rider that you couldn't get for 50 or 60k in free agency. So he's not the real deal, at least not in Pro Continental Tour. So apart from the stage racers, where they only have Young Sandri as proper support, and the time trials, they have to take a gamble at sprinters, and have to hope that the sprinters can do well. They have Hussein El Sabahi, which is, I think, newly maxed, and I like him a lot. I think he's got some good stats. It's a little bit sad if his acceleration would be a little higher. I'd say he would be a very good training target. The 69 hills is pretty nice. So that could have worked. Otherwise, they got Eritrean Elias Affewerki, who's also a decent enough sprint in his last year. I think his wage is quite on the high side for what he can do, but he could do a job. I think there is no chance that Kaiser Adler will promote with the team, but there is enough quality. If Reis doesn't have a totally terrible season, then they should be able to do enough to be far enough away from relegation. I would consider them solid mid-table for now, but that may be changing if I figure out that there are other teams stronger. By the way, most of the teams I have not seen yet, so this will be quite intuitive. We'll figure out on the fly whether we like or don't like what we see. Bralirwa Chegeka is a Rwandan team, and I think they did not add a proper scorer. I'm not sure if Dylan Tönz was there last year. Otherwise, they didn't really add a scorer, but kind of lost some riders. I think Tesfatsion is newly maxed, which is nice. But the big addition, anyway, we can't see on the sheet was the Cinderella story of bringing Binyam Girmay finally home, and they didn't have to pay that much of a price, at least not compared to what his wage was. But with the addition of Girmay, this team that was so close of promoting to World Tour now did a job where you'd argue that they're most likely taking a step back this year to take 2 steps forward next season. That's how I would address the situation. Without Silvestre now, they still have Yuri Starac, who should be very good, and if I remember correctly, the cobblers are not really that deep in the Pro Continental Tour. But instead, on the climbers end, I think it may be a good year for climbers, because there are not the standout superstar climbers in there, but Meintjes is in his last year. He was great last year. Will he be as great this year? I'm not too sure. They have some nice attackers in Ndai Zenga. Also, I like what Tesfazion can bring to the table. He should have Hill's leadership and should be reasonably well prepared for that. His stamina and his flat could be an issue, but he's got a great punch and he's got good mountain stats, so he should be fine. And he can get those youth classification points, which is also cool. Dylan Turns should be very good as a complementary rider to Tesfazion. Ndai Zenga is more a poor attacker. There's nobody that you can really count on scoring on these secondary riders, but you kind of know that 1 or 2 of them will have a good season. Simone Velasco is an underratedly good rider in support, but can go for himself. He's got his nice flat, good punch, good stamina, which is fine. And then we also in this team have Bonaventure Uviseimana. And he's a good rider because he can do things in the stage races in a way that he's good at holding on and can sneakily get to the depth point that you want and that that become more important as we rise through the divisions. So I think Uviseimana is a good part of the setup. And in general, this squad has aging stars, and all of Mighty, Stallard, and Turns will decline for next year, but I think it's a more transitional year before next year, so I would rather put them in the long shot category than farther up right now. But we also know that Kunigo 59 can do planning really well, and I think that it wouldn't be a complete surprise if they promote. It's just they have different focuses with Girmay coming in this year. Then we get to Dika Žalgiris, the Lithuanian team, managed by well received long-term member Quasdas. At this point, he blessed us for a long time with Christopher Halvorsen. Now Christopher Halvorsen is gone, and he's got kind of surprisingly more into the old riders category. His 3 main leaders are all 32 and older, so all declining. Peter Sagan and Michał Kwiatkowski will be hit pretty hard after the season. I think Sagan should still be good, though there's question marks over his acceleration in comparison to the very top riders, and I'm also a little concerned about his resistance. Michał Kwiatkowski should still be good, but I also fear that he lost his magic. If you, for example, compare him to who we've just seen, to Tesfazion, it's mostly this one hills that he's better in. Otherwise, he'd struggle in comparisons. So I do not think that Kwiatkowski and Sagan will be as amazing as those 2 names would have been in the past. Daniel Vesely has had a good season. He is a little up and down, and he's basically the temporary solution before Adomaitis Rojos will be taking his place. That won't take too long, I think, but he's a good transition to make the sale of Halvorsen capable of adapting to. And for the Lithuanians that take a stronger and stronger role, they've especially built some very good time trialists. We have Justas Beniusis, that is already pretty good. We have Rokas Kmieliauskas, that will be even better. That's a fantastic talent, Kmieliauskas. Kvatsas did a very good job of getting those Lithuanian talents in, securing them on contracts. We've got Venantas Lasinis, who received the training, I'm pretty sure. He's already a capable stage racer. won't score too big for now, but that can come. They've got a good young cobbler in Tediashvili, and also have Norman Vatra, who's likewise a good rider on formidable wage for what he can do. So I like the chances that they take in on the cobbles. Also, Airi Das Videka is a cool rider there. For the Lithuanians, I think the time trialing, they have to focus on time trialing in the future with Beniusis. I salute to Quatsas for what he did with the Lithuanian core and also some other Baltic riders in there. Peter Tarvis is a very cool rider that I used, and that was fantastic for me. So I really enjoy that rider. And overall, the good thing about the team is it basically has no bad riders in there, and it has Arno Deli as a freaking amazing talent. So, yeah, as much as the controversies about Dika Jalgiris come, they are a good team. I do not specifically like their leaders a lot, but I think the depth will be good, and the depth will come through even more over the next years. So I think they're in the solid mid-table right now, but next year I see Dika Jalgiris as promotion candidates, surely. Then we have École Le Creuset, managed by Candice Bunzler. They've fired up really quickly. And the transition to the Pro Continental Tour surely wasn't an easy one, and they had to pay quite some wages in free agency to get the riders that they have. And they have a French focus, so they had to pay quite a lot for Maxime Daniel and Aurélien Paré-Pentre. I'm not sure if that's enough to stay up, to be honest. We had Suranga Ranavera in the past being vital for a team that stayed safe in the Pro Continental Tour. I think when I remember it was this season where he was with Kraftwerk, if I remember correctly. But then also had his issues to keep up Sauber. And he's an up and down rider. I think he has a good skill set. He will score, but he won't get the big points. And there's nobody that really can get the big points in. I would have loved if Aurélien Paré-Pentre could have received some training. I think with what he brings to the table, he would have been a very interesting rider to train the sprint stat in, if you could afford that. Imagine with his skill set getting to 74 or even 76 sprints over the next 2 years. That would have been amazing. But it's obviously costly, and it depends on whether you can afford it. And École is a team that surely has to struggle against relegation. They don't have those clear-cut scorers. Rui Oliveira is a cool asset, but he's quite similar to Rok Korosec, and with Korosec I wasn't even sure if he can do it on the continental level. So I'm not convinced that Oliveira is really that guy a level above. And otherwise, the hill depth is quite okay with Paulus and Lagac, but yeah, they're in support of Paré-Pentre, so you've got to hope that they can be the catalyst for Paré-Pentre to work really well. They have to make use of that stage racing depth. They've got a couple of really cool riders. Lawrence Pithy is already a contributor on level 1 who would be really good. Mathis Louvel is a guy for the future. They've got a cool French base, at least with Paré-Pentre and the talents. But it will be tough to fight against relegation, in my opinion. I will right now put them in the fighting to stay up position, but I think that Candice Bunzler, who is a guy that maybe I put him into danger territory right now. But I think that's mainly due to what I would expect Candice Bunzler as a manager to be able to do with his planning skills, and how he may manage to get to work Aurélien Paré-Pentre will be the key to the season. Then we got Elko Abea. Let me check if I got all the riders for École. Yes. Elko Abea, managed by Probably many would consider him the GOAT of man game racing. I think he got, the most out of any in terms of titles and in terms of consistent greatness with Festina Dexia and all the previous names that it had. They obviously went to a Greek and Cypriotic approach with an asterisk. The asterisk is getting riders each year to sell from somewhere else and funding Greek training with that. But they sold their last big asset this year after relegation with Brian Coquard. Does that mean that Elko Abea is doomed? I do not think so. I think Elko Abea is at a point where the Greek talents, or former talents, however you want to call it, even though it's the time where Panagiotis Vlatos is not there anymore, I think the Greek riders are there to take over. And you can see that with Stylianos Farantakis, who of course will struggle against the likes of Brian Coquard, but can consistently work to be one of the better sprinters, one of the top 5 sprinters in the division, especially with the 79 prologue, which are very handy. And the 72 time trial can also be a factor. And I think the team did well at giving him a fitting train, especially with Anastasios Kompetsos, who can work really well, and Alex Edmondson also fits the skill set. So that should be fine. We also have some of the really, I think, one of the coolest riders in the peloton in the team with Georgios Boutopoulos. Georgios is more of an attacker, but he can use his skill set in multiple races. I would try to use him as complementary as you can to Farantakis. Separate them, maybe even ride less flat classics with Farantakis to unleash Boutopoulos. He's also a good cobbler with his stats. 74 cobbles should be enough to really make a difference. I think the team may shot themselves in the foot by signing Danny Summerhill. I think that he may hold back what their Greek talent in Kortsidakis and Stavrakakis can do. But maybe I'm wrong, and they are working complementary so that Summerhill helps them to rise up in the start list, but Elko will be in trouble if the team rides for Summerhill instead. But well, we do not have a strong hill department in the team. That's definitely a weak point. Emiliano Villa is not a special rider, and I think he won't be able to contribute a lot, but that's not the point of the team. They've got some pretty nice time trialists with Afeni and Christopopoulos, of course. We have Ioannidis Kyriakidis, who is a good time trialist that has this climbing ability even better with Nikolaos Ioannidis. So the team is very deep. It does not have the standout scorer besides Farantakis. I think Farantakis can be that standout scorer. Janutsos I'm not a big fan of, but he was the logical rider to train. He should be alright, but he doesn't have the hill stats. He doesn't have outstanding time trial. He does not have a good flat stat. He doesn't have the sprint acceleration. So I think he's more will be there rider similar to Michael Mavrikakis. So I do not expect him to be that big of a scorer. But I think that SOTD will be able to enable the depth scoring very well and should especially make use of that time trial force that he has to get some really good points out of those. So Elko definitely is a team that should be in promotion range. Not sure if they can win it all, but planning wins in Pro Continental Tour, and who else to trust than SOTD? Then we go to another long-term valued member of the game, Gustavovsky. He's got his team Everesting these days, and they lay a lot of their trust in young puncher Robert Stannard, who's now fully maxed and juiced up to become, I think, and his trajectory is pretty clear. He should become one of the best punchers in the world. He's got all the tools that you need to become a good puncher. He's got blistering acceleration, a decent enough sprint, good hills, good mountains, no gaps in his game. I think he'll be fantastic for the team. They still get Joao Rodriguez, who is leftover of the Portuguese team times, who enjoyed some nice training in the past. He's not a special rider, but he's good enough to be the better version of Rafael Reis. Yeah, but apart from that, there is not really a lot in the team. They do not have a formidable time trial force. They have a decent enough one to support Rodriguez, but not very special. The hilly support for Robert Stannard is fitting with the Jai Hindley, and apart from that, there is not a good hill force to support. But then again, there are plenty of unmaxed riders in the team. In terms of sprints, Tomohiro Hayakawa is in his last year. He does not have great support, but Peter Kennock can do his thing, I guess. But Hayakawa does not have project to be an amazing sprinter, in my opinion. Yeah, and apart from that, they do not have cobblers. They do not have threats in terms of attacking, really. I do not like the skill sets in terms of secondary stats. They're not great, but then again, there's many young riders. But they do not have these punchy riders. They do not have these flat attackers that you would like to have. So I'm not as high on Everesting as people may suggest. And if Stannard has a bad season, I think they could really struggle. At the end, I think they have a great shirt, but I may be tripping. In my opinion, they may be in danger territory this year. If they cannot get Stannard to work, more likely solid mid-table, but it's going to be difficult. It's more likely solid mid-table. I shouldn't get carried away, but they really need Stannard to work. Then let's go further to Indosat. Indosat has probably the coolest rider in the whole division, Eddie Dunbar. He's received multiple trainings. He's now at a point where he's out and out, I would argue, the best rider in the division. Saying that before I've seen everybody, knowing that Brian Kokar comes, who probably objectively is even a little bit better. But there is the opportunities that you have with Dunbar are almost endless. So he should be massive alone. He was last year with the training that he received. He is Andrea Baggioli. Also, formidable rider. He's quite like Stannard. He obviously doesn't have the hill stat, so he should score lower, but he's still 25. He's got a little bit more of a sprint stat, a little bit more of his stamina, which could help him. A little bit more time trial, so he may survive the out-and-out time trial. I think Baggioli is a guy to build around, and Baggioli and Dunbar is just a fantastic core. Then we have Justo Tenorio. I'm not sure what he can bring to the table, but his combination of mountain and time trial could or should be enough to be a good secondary scorer and Dunbar races, similar role that Brandon Canty has, but obviously received chances at his own. However, 64 flats, 61 acceleration should not work out properly. I think Tenorio is a gamble. But apart from that, the climbing department looks alright. There is Abdurrahman. He's okay. He's not great, but it's at this point with Abdurrahman, with Sakalo, with Arifin, with Kanti, it's more about supporting Dunbar and Tenorio and getting death points out of those. Baggioli doesn't really have support. I do not rate Muhammad Yudha really. However, he's a regional rider like Abdurrahman, like Arifin, which is nice. There are plenty of Indonesians at the team, which is already cool. And probably the most important of them all this year could be Sandi Nur Hassan. Sandi Nur Hassan, now 26 years of age. Not a special guy, but has to hold his own in the sprints. He's got the energy stats in the flat to do so. I think he won't be particularly flashy, but he's a rider that you can count on in the flat races if they do not send Abdul Ghani and Clement Venturini with him, which could impede him more than help him. I think he could be alright. With Indosat, I do not think they are a title contender. They may be in promotion range. They may be more of a long shot. With Dunbar, I think you gotta be in the promotion range with what they can bring on the table. But then again, it's also about finding good ways of using Bajoli's skill set, of using Dunbar, but Indosat has a track record of using Dunbar well, so I think they are very well set. Let's go to Isa Hexacta from Eden's team to Scorchio's team. Scorchio's always been one of my... Yeah, when I was a manager, Scorchio has been one of the managers I looked up to in terms of planning and team composition, because I always felt his teams were not that flashy or not with riders that I would take, that I would build around, but did so well at finding ways to score points. And that's, as you can see with the stamina and resistance column here, which is almost full green, that is done by formidable depth scoring. That is also done by something where we closed on with enjoying similar rider styles. If you look at this flat column with the lower weight riders, all very high flat riders that are fantastic for attacking. Idar Andersen particularly is a good rider. I think that I even had myself. Did I have him myself? And would I have trained him differently? I think I would have trained him differently. Well, small detour. Very good depth of riders. Fantastic core to support Caleb Ewan. Caleb Ewan is a really good guy, obviously. He'll struggle under having to ride against Kokar in the division. So for sprinters, it's not a very easy way. Harrison and Contreras don't fit him, but I think it should be Bosca anyway who leads him out, and then all the flat riders in before. I think if I would build a trainer, I would probably have Sagif and then Bosca and then Ewan for him. And Harrison and Contreras have other skills that they can use. With the team, I like what obviously Aiden van Niekerk, legend of the game, can bring to the table, and he turned into a really, really good rider. Somebody that can do well in the hills, who will thank all the gods all the time that Joseph Areruya isn't there anymore and that he's gone to Pro Tour. But apart from that, Aiden van Niekerk, good rider, has great support with Edmondson Pies, Jefferson Cepeda, Sepulveda. Sepulveda is a rider that, as himself, can be really good in terms of depth scoring. They have the Chilean guy Diego Ferreira and also Getachew Sendico and Juan Osorio, all, if I remember correctly, all of them self-developed talents. Nicolas Dlamini goes into the same direction. All of them self-developed. So really impressive work by Scorchio. I think if he manages to enable the depth, they can do really, really well. I don't like the cobble setup. Logan Owen is somebody I had on my team as well. Did not like too much what he could bring to the table. I think there'll be a side note in the cobbles, but probably only the mandatory races anyway. And then it's all about making the best out of what you have with Caleb Ewan, using Aiden van Niekerk well, trying to get into as few pure climbing races as possible, but instead work the depth in all sorts of classics. And then Isaac can do really well. Right now, I would consider them more like long shots for the title, for the promotion. But never count out Isa Hexacta. I think they're formidable with a formidable manager. In fact, I would probably put them into promotion range and even ahead of Indosat. Then let's go to Jever Tirol. This is a team that promoted right in the first year and had to struggle with a pretty difficult market. They ended up paying well for Maxim Debesai, who is past his prime, who paid for Nikias Arndt, who is past his prime, and also brought some other riders in Johan Payot and Omar Fraye. However, Jever Tirol will struggle, that's for sure. They're a clear relegation candidate, but manager Blasing managed to do well with his planning in the first season. He also built a team that has upside. We've seen how you can use Nikias Arndt well multiple times with manager Dave Tubob, who we'll look at next. We've seen that you could use the sprinter depth that they have in Thomas Boudin and Max Losch. Max Abdebizai lacks the support that I would like him to have, but he can still be a very handy rider in Pro Conti Tour, where you have the most freedom to plan around. David Gaburo is a rider I managed myself, and I love to manage him, and on 60k he's a massive steal. He shouldn't be used in the position of a hills leader in like hilly classics. That's what the team is not built for, but he would probably be a really good attacker in stage races where he can go where he can go stage hunting. They've built some sort of regional core besides Arndt and Gaburo. The one that stands out is Fabian Lienhardt, which is a Swiss rider as well, and with the Austrian Felix Großschartner, they've got the regional guy in there. Apart from that, they've got some nice additional riders. I like Alex Wohler. He's got a pretty decent skill set, but apart from that, there is no great scorer on there. I think they are the first team where I say they are fighting to stay up, but they're definitely not out of the game, and they do have a chance of staying up if they can work their team well. In my opinion, it would have needed a couple of more good time trialists or a hilly leader that you can work for, or some better support for Debesai to really get there. But it's been very difficult for Pro Conti teams that haven't been that amazing before. Then we have Kraftwerk. Kraftwerk Man Machine, always team that builds around depth. I think they must hold the record for most team classifications won in man game history. And looking at how the team looks like, they're going in that direction as well, although it feels like they've lost a little bit of that depth. Instead, they got a good leader in Anthony Turgy. They've got a nice rider in Rick Zabel as a sprinter, both on pretty high wages, but especially Turgy has shown that the 67 mountains that did not hold him back in multiple classics, and that he does work well, especially with the 78 resistance that comes in handy. Another rider that should be really liked by the game is Fausto Mosnada, because he's such a complete framework and is very energetic for a climber, which should work well. They've also got Alex Evans, Felix Gall, Jaime Roson. They should all be fine, but nothing that stands out as a rider. I do not see a rider that can win the Tour of America. So they probably just have to find the next Marco Haller to win 6 stages or 8 stages or whatever. They do have that guy if they send Rick Zabel or Max Walscheid. If they send Rick Zabel, they have a very fitting support in Dan McClay. So I'm convinced that Kraftwerk does well. Also this year they have the formidable Nikolai Cherkasov, who I absolutely adore as a rider, and who will work really well. I would have loved him in a team without a sprinter, but he'll still be great. But apart from that, I'm not sold on the time trial squad. The Cobble squad never has been the main part of Kraftwerk Man Machine, but the Boist is more alright. In the Conti Tour, he would be fantastic here. I can't see him get to the finish with the big boys too often. So at the end, I do not think that Kraftwerk will relegate, but I think they are in more danger than we've seen them in the past. So I'll put them in the danger territory, but more towards solid mid-table than what we used to see. But we continue with Lierse SK with the Pizzaulo team. And yes, Nicolo Bonifacio is still in the team. Yes, Sam Omen is still in the team. In the Conti preview, we've heard about the shenanigans they had in the past with riders like Gianni Moscon, with riders like Zico Waitens. But yeah, at least with Bonifacio, there is still one meme rider left. Though with Domen Novak, it didn't work out. Novak's not in the team anymore. Instead, they focus on other riders. One of the key guys that I think got trained as well is homegrown Patrick Gamper. He's had a really good time. Surely received training in the past. And has a very good skill set to be that Fabian Cancellara type of guy. I don't think he'll ever be that guy in the classics. That's because he doesn't have the sprint or the hill stats to really dominate. But I like his skill set anyway, to be a very consistently good scorer. Nicolo Bonifacio, I mean, the resistance stat is bad. I still love what he can bring to the table, despite him being 31 years old. He's always on a terrible wage, but you'd always want a guy like him on the team. We'll see what he can bring. Let's hope he doesn't ride alongside Jakub Mareczko, but more alongside just other riders that can unleash him differently, like Verwilst or Biermann or something. Yeah, but with Lierse, otherwise, they have a good sprinter, they have a good cobbler, they have a decent time trial depth. Viktor Potocki is a cool rider. I like what he can do with his stage racing. Shimon Synok, a homegrown rider that has a good time trial stat. Dilmurjan Sidikov from Uzbekistan, also a time trial specialist that has a good engine. So in the time trials, they should be set to get some points here and there. What's really interesting is, can they work Laurens de Plus in the hills? I think he's a difficult rider to bank on, because he's got the advantage in the hill and the mountain over riders like Tesfazion that we've seen earlier. But with De Plus, the issue is he's not got the punch that you need to score big. He'll obviously, like Van Gils, like Van Pauke, will benefit, also like Alessandro Covi, but he's a helper anyway, benefit from the likes of Beltran declining, Areru, Yagon. But it's not that easy for these hill mountain secondary riders to score big anymore. And I'm a little bit concerned about how the team can utilize the plus. With Sam Oneman, he'll always score his points. He should also benefit from the stage racing landscape that is not that amazing. So Lierse, I always tend to override Lierse. I think I put them in the long shots this time. But they need to finally find a solution to work, to get Bonifacio to work, to be more than a long shot. Then we go further to Yapi Vita, and I'm a little bit scared to look at the team because last year I think this was my best pick, picking them as a promotion team. And this year it will be difficult. They also, similarly to Blasing's team Jeva Tirol, they struggled under a difficult market. First thing, when you see the team, you gotta love the high fighter stats on the riders. They opted to sign quite some young talent, which is interesting. So quite some fighter talents, especially from the Balkans. They got Giuliano Cambrai, who my heart is set on anyway, and I think is formidable. He won't have the season that he had in CT, but he will do. He will do fine. He did well. He did well in every season that he was a pro yet. With the Hilly team, it's very difficult. Wilco Kelderman already wasn't good when he wasn't declined, and now declined. And there is plenty of good hill riders this year. Bruno Borges has always been fantastic. In fact, I probably would have liked Borges instead of Kelderman as a captain. Still, after the decline on 110k, he's an absolute steal. But I do not trust Borges. His 69 flat and mountain make him look worse than he is. But to be honest, I do not trust the hill setup. They got the right riders to support, but it's going to be difficult. With Vilela especially, and also with Lukashenko, they have some really cool stage hunters in the team. But yeah, they've also got Siim Kiskonen. I think he'd be great in the Continental Tour with Pro Conti Tour. I feel like he'll more often than not do not have receive the chance to sprint. They do not really have a cobbled rider except for Tim Merlier, and again, he's a good rider for the Continental Tour. In Pro Conti Tour, he will struggle to make it to the finish. Yves Lampard similarly is over the top. Max Harrell. For me, this looks like the perfect Continental Tour squad if you cut out the Kelderman and the price that you took. But Yapi Vita kind of missed the opportunity to fully prepare for the future, in my opinion. They've got a lot of riders that are 33, 32 that will lose quite a bit in worth next year, while they are likely not good enough to stay up. I mean, they have Chiarello, but he's also past his prime. 300k is quite a lot. I'm not sure. I would love if Stella Vita would survive, but with Kelderman and Borges as the two highest rated riders, I cannot see them stay up at this point. But let's hope to be surprised. And not only hope to be surprised by Lotto Kaloy, but trust in Laurens, who has quite a similarly built team, in a sense, not necessarily age-wise, but in a sense in how it's built. They've got Petr Vakoc as their headline signing, who has been surprisingly good last year. He's got the 81 hill, which is good. I think he's more a Pro Tour than a Pro Conti rider, because he did the best when he was at, I think, Tinkoff, and then also at Scorchio's team, if I remember correctly, when he was the shadow rider that followed and surprised at the end. Whereas that didn't work out when he used to ride with the team of Roman, with Becherovka. And nowadays, I think he'll be a little too much in the limelight and has to do too much earlier, I think, to work well. But we'll figure it out. Maybe I'm wrong on that one. They got Lilian Calmejean, who's a fantastic rider. I think he will score in every scenario. You have to hope that you can find a complementary schedule to Petr Vakoc for him, because you'd likely do not want them in the same race. What I like about the team is how Kiang Ho Min is a rider that doesn't really need good support riders to function. He's a rider that just holds on, and Zubeldias himself to 8th or 10th places, which is fine. Geoffrey Bouchard, similar mold. I like what he can do for the team. Nairo Quintana, absolutely hate that signing. I think Nairo Quintana is one of the most terrible riders in the man game, and one of the most overrated riders for years. I do not trust in his ability. But then again, they have Jiankun Liu, and I'm always afraid of low resistance sprinters, but Jiankun Liu has done pretty well in the past, has a good sweet spot to be in good position, but does not need a lead out. And they've got riders with Wouters and with Zengler that should do well as complementary riders. I like what Jared Drisners can bring to the table. He's got a nice punch. With Drisners and Calmejean especially, they've also got riders that could really do well from breakaways. They also got the legend that is Nur Armirul Mazuki, who can also do that really well. But overall, the team lacks in too many departments of a really good leader. We especially talk about that in terms of time trial and in terms of cobbles, where they do not have notable leaders. But also, I'm not really sold on the mountain situation. They could have enough to stay up, but right now I think they're more they're deep in the danger territory, at least. We have to figure out what they can do. Then we go to Manada Coyote. Yeah, and they laid all eggs in one big ass basket, and that's Brian Kokar. Dark Wolf did a good job at retooling his team. Kokar and McCarthy are both old, but Brian Kokar still is the best rider in the division. Probably, well, Dunbar has his case, but he's very good. But he's got no fitting lead out. That's a problem. Looking at the team, I do not think that John Jimenez Retana would work as a lead out. That could be a real problem. Jason Huertas, if he works well, I do not like sprinters that have higher acceleration than sprint as a lead out rider. I prefer high sprint, low acceleration to get the slingshot effect if you have a leader with decent acceleration and good, or at least if you have a leader that has lower acceleration than sprint. I would want my second, like the last man, to have higher sprint, especially if you're meant to have a lot of lead outs. If I would design a team, I would have tried to get at least one or two flat beasts to prepare them and get a rider like what Brandon Rodriguez can be in 2 years. That would probably be the perfect type of lead out for Kokar, but then Kokar is 34, so not really sure if they can utilize Kokar well. Jay McCarthy is a rider that still has high flats. He could use them. I fear, similarly to Vakoc, that he does not like the limelight. That he could fizzle into some sort of Kelderman-ish type rider. Not Kelderman now, but what we used to know from Kelderman. Not sure if they can make the best out of their leaders, and otherwise they don't really have a lot of scoring opportunities. Harold Tejada, good rider, but a good support rider, not a scorer. And apart from that, I don't really see a guy that can score well. They've got, well, the good thing about Jimenez Retana, but his sprint stat usually should be too low to sprint. I'm not sure. This may be a very controversial thing to say, but for me, I think despite having Kokar and Tejada, they're in real relegation danger. To a point where I consider to putting them down there and fighting to stay up. We'll have to see. It's probably an overreaction at this point, but I don't trust in the team because I just don't see the scorers outside of Kokar and McCarthy, and I'm not sure if they have the perfect setup. I think I put them here into danger territory. Then we got McCormick Pro Cycling, and this, of course, had one of the most controversial trades where they gave away McNulty to get Ivan Sosa, who I think received training. But then again, Brent McNulty, I think, could have carried this team to promotion if they would have kept McNulty. Now they have plenty of good riders. Adam Yates, of course. We do not need to talk about that. Adam Yates will be a great scorer for the team. We know that Ivan Sosa can be a good scorer. He's got question marks over him in terms of sprint stat, in terms of flat stats. When you look at classics, he's got no concerns in terms of Grand Tours or even Grand Tours later, if the long-term project indeed trends towards World Tour. But we also know that this is a role play move, and McCormick is trending more towards the Colombian, the South American market. They have Johnny Narvaez, who's a really nice rider. If he receives some sprint training, he could be really juicy. But, well, they've got the US hero in Sepp Kuss, still waving the flag for them. Nicolas Cabrera should be a homegrown talent who's pretty decent. And then, of course, we know how much they love the Tour of America, and they've got the perfect rider, Marco Haller, even though he's received his first decline. Greg Daniel, is headlining a good team time trial team. Not good enough to win anything, but good to do decently well and support the captains. I think with Adam Yates alone, the team stays up. But I think apart from Adam Yates, it's not that easy to score points with the team. Ivan Sosa is a couple of trainings away from being really good. If I were the manager, I would have probably gone more towards the Beltran direction and tried to train him in the hills and try to get him to like 81 hills or something. But then again, he lacks the sprint for that, so difficult to know which direction McCormick goes. I would guess it's a transitional year. They try to flip Adam Yates for a young, great talent from South America next year. That's what I guess, but we'll figure that out. I think McCormick is safe with Yates, but not really a team where you're excited about the chances that they have. Well, maybe. Well, they should be safe. If they do not roleplay too much with the 8s, then they need to be safe. We got the minions next. Manager Marco VDV is managing the team for long now. They've got Tomohiro Kinoshita in the team, who's on some big paycheck. They've got Jonas Alstrand, they've got Mattia Cattaneo, and yes, we're not talking about a Pro Tour team in 2022. We're talking about a Pro Conti team in 2024, where sadly all of them received declines already, some of them sharper. So they're not the big stars that they used to be, but they're enough to be a good team. And they've also got the next generation rider with Mikel Bier. However, if we look at the age, Bier and Calaba are really the young guns in the team. Everybody else of note is 30 and older. The three. Yeah, so they are kind of in a now or never situation to promote, in my opinion. And Kinoshita always is a good spot. Good shout for scoring big. I like what Kinoshita can bring to the table. Apart from Kinoshita, I'm not wowed by what the team can do. I think for Cattaneo and Bier, they have the team to support them. I do not think that they're... Well, Bier obviously is very good. But I'm lacking the one additional really good time trialist to make really use of them. And with Cattaneo, I don't think he'll score big in the mountain race anymore where there's no time trials involved. And then again, I don't know what the calendar is for Cattaneo, if he can use his skill set well. To me, it's quite a question mark. And also with Alstrand, he will obviously still score points, but the big ones, I don't think so. Minions may hope to promote. I think they are more in the territory of solid mid-table. If they can really work Kinoshita well, then they could go further up. But apart from Kinoshita and Alstrand, well, okay, they also got Calaba. If they plan him complementary to Alstrand, he's a good rider. They've got Vosse Kalns. Maybe a long shot if they can really work. Probably they're better fit in the long shot category, because if everything goes to plan, they can definitely be a promotion team, but it will be more difficult than the first glance of the first 4, 5, 6 riders looks at, because the team doesn't have the depth or the support to ensure success. Then we have Podium Ambition, a team where I have connections with plenty of riders, and the manager, the Manx Missile, of course, well known for his extravagant taste in riders, in rum, in sponsors, in whatever they associate with Podium Ambition. And after some years in the Continental Tour, where they've prescribed themselves to the approach of going full Caribbean. They built their Caribbean team to an extent where they have good depth, good talent, some really good riders coming up. I'm looking especially at Nathaniel Forbes. And first and foremost, a solid base that makes them, whenever they're in Continental Tour, which I have to admit is likely to happen for next season, to get right up. The time trial depth is there. It's not good enough to win anything in Pro Continental Tour, but it is there. There is no rider over 30 in the squad, which shows what they did. They did well with the training. Christopher Lagan is a genuine threat now. Alexandre Mayer is decent enough. Andrew Norbert, he could receive some training. Jay Mayor is there. So, well, we have to be honest. There is nobody that can win races in the Pro Conti Tour except for Christopher Lagan if everything comes to perfection. So what they probably need to do is find every race that Demar goes, put Lagan in Demar's slipstream, and hope that he can overpower him at some point. But the team's probably not about staying up. It's about developing cool riders, and especially with the riders that I was lucky enough to have to take part of in their development, like Hassani Hennis, Joshua Gayral, who've done really well for me and can do well as part of the team. It's probably mostly about flying the flags in as many breakaways and as many attacks as possible. So while I have to do podium ambition into the fighting to stay up column, they're just a team that are at this point just fun to follow in the Pro Conti Tour. And from podium ambition to a team with more ambition in the Pro Conti Tour, I would guess the long-lasting Samarinese team of Samiti 93. Sauber Petronas Racing had some formidable riders in the past, like when they tore up the division with Tom Hjalte Slachter, still on form. Nowadays, they got the next big Swiss thing in Mark Hirschi in their team. And yeah, he's not training eligible this year. I would bet a lot on him receiving training next year. But this year, he is the main character in their quest to ensure that Sauber Petronas Racing stays up, because they always feel like a low-end Pro Conti team that is always in danger of relegating but could always stay up. Depends on a little bit of a roll of the dice and a little bit of luck as well. They have Mark Hirschi as their puncher. He's not got great support, but it also the main numbers look worse than they are. I think it's decent. They've got some, and of course they have Muhammad Azman from Malaysia, who's a very cool rider and can do some depth scoring himself. For the climbs, they also do not really have a score. I think they've trained Mushin Misbah, the other Malaysian guy in the team, the other local guy. And he's fitting well by complementing Kilian Franchini, who's also a cool Swiss rider. I do not have trust in a sense that they need to score well, but I think they'll add up the points to make them worthwhile. They kind of lack the main stats, but then they also have some good riders to back them up. Yuri Natarov is a decent guy. Mingrun Chen will be cool next year. Jamal Hibatullah, not really a flashy guy, but he's alright. Sahin Dulanjana. The team has a very healthy age and team structure, so whatever happens should be alright. I think they are in danger territory in the way that they fight against relegation, but I also am quite confident that they have enough depth that somebody will step up and ensure that they will not relegate, and that they're dangerous over the next years if they can find the funds, for example, to train Mark Hirschi next year and the year after, and then they've got a monster in their team. So I would put Sauber Petronas in danger territory, but strong enough there to probably make the cut if everything goes to plan. Who else do we have? We continue with Sony Force India. They've retooled themselves quite a bit. I think Kyo Choi was one of the headliners last year. Now they have Dan Olivier as a captain. He came over from the promoting team of Roturn and from Fastnet, yes. And he's a local leader that the team's craved for quite some time. The team of Abhishek also has Tish Benoj as a captain who always scores well and has the big value of being a hilly guy, a cobbled guy that can do both and score in both and score well in both. So he's a guy that you can bank on in such an environment. Alexander Catafort and Damien Hausen. A good combination of riders in terms of ranking in points through time trials. I do not like that they don't have any time trial depth, but they've also looked at finding plenty of talent to the team. So they had to sacrifice somewhere. I think Abhishek built a great squad nonetheless. Looking at what they have in support for Dan Olivier, I hope that Gijs Lemreise gets chances to ride for himself. Get some white jersey points. Jonel Carcueva looks like a cool rider. Yamato Shirota, Christian Hocevar, that's all fine in support for Olivier. In terms of hill support, there is less. I would prefer if Mick van Dijke gets other chances to ride for himself, but it's okay. In terms of Lemreise and Carcueva are not necessarily needed for Olivier in every race, so they could also support Benoit. And Benoit has the mountain stat to use such domestiques well, so it should be fine. Their cobble team took a decline from last year, though Corrueda does not look a lot worse than Rinkheim. We have to hope that the 77 cobbles is enough to stay up, but apart from that, he'll probably be in support of Benoit. And that role could fit him well despite Saya lacking the hill stats. The sprints team is a little bit on the low side. Kulikovsky cannot make up for the loss of, I think, Vesely. Still, he's a good rider that can do a decent sprint here and there. Not wowed by him, but should be alright. All in all, I think I like them similarly to Elko Abea. Maybe I need to put both of them up a step, to be honest. Right now I put them into promotion range, and if the other teams are not better, then at the end we probably have to move some of the teams up. Then let's continue with Specialized. Specialized, a team that looks, just from the age structure, more a team that is about to go for the promotion push. Manager White Jersey did a good job at preparing the team that has Przemyslav Kasperkiewicz as the headline rider. That is a good cobbler. I'm not sure if he came over from BikeX this year or last year, but nevertheless, he's one of the top cobblers of the division. I would wildly guess that he should be at least in the top 3. Van Keiersburg, a real team legend, is a good guy to support. Other than that, the team's got a good climber in Warren Bagui. He's had a decline. He's still a good rider. He will still score points. So I have trust in Warren Barguil. Pavel Potocki, a nice support, but nothing special. In the hills, they've got Sandro Mörise as a captain. Has also done well in the past. Again, not a lot of support for Mörise, but he's got everything you want in terms of punch, in terms of flat, in terms of hills, in terms of mountains, in terms of energy stats. So he's the complete package. If he receives the chance of decent positioning, he will do well. All in all, the good thing about the team is they basically don't have a rider that I don't like in their important positions. They have some really cool riders to take chances. Oskar Riesebeek is a really cool rider. Mark Jamasdagic, of course, fantastic rider. Jonathan Milan looks already like a decent guy that you want to have. Patrick Nord has also been a cool guy in the past. Yes, they do have a lot of young guys, and they have Juan Ayuso in their team, who'll obviously be insane in the future. But they took the right year to take a gamble in terms of spending big on other things. While avoiding relegation, and I think avoiding relegation is clear. I'm not sure how far they can go. At this point, for me, they're in the solid mid-table range, somewhere in the middle. And if they can really work Kasperkiewicz, Bargi, and Mörise, then maybe even more. But it's probably too difficult to go really for a promotion push. Then we have Tafjord Kraft. They used to be the team of Bjarne used to be a team that was quite surefire inventory of the Pro Conti Tour. They relegated down to city status. They spent there quite some time, which surprised me. Now they're back with pure identity on the Nordic countries. They've got Sondre Holst-Enger as their captain, coming over from Cedevita. Who's good enough? Who should hopefully not be paired up with Ackermann or Varstedt. But I like what he can do as a Pro Conti sprinter. I think that's the right division for him. I think they've got good stage hunters in Varstedt and Liepins, even though their price tag is pretty high in terms of wage. Ackermann obviously is a cool guy. If you'd have training money left over, this would have been the perfect team to train his hills, in my opinion. 78 or 79 hills could have put him over the top to be in contention in those hilly classics. 78, I'm not too sure. But with Christian Dirnes and Lukas Eriksson, they have at least riders to make sure that the team is recognized in the hilly races, which should be fine. In terms of climbers, they have the local guys in Aved Gebremedin, in Mark Christian Garby, and with Rasmus Guldhammer. But they are not really scorers. In the time trials, the team's also alright. Thereabouts, with Wangstad, Belevic, with Kaczmarek, with Sterobo, but not really outstanding. Sondre Enger can do a good prologue, that can help, but apart from that, the team is quite deep, especially in terms of sprinters. They have the right lead-out riders for Sondre Enger that work, probably. They've got some cool attackers. Viktor Malakov, for example, is a nice guy. I like what Jakub Kaczmarek can do. He's got quite a unique skill set. I think they're a team that, out of the promoted teams, is still in danger territory and depends a lot on planning, but has a chance to stay up and could use that chance. Then we go towards Team Popo Forever, and they've got their clear-cut captain. Some called him the next Alexander Plushkin. I would doubt that that's the case. He's still a good rider. And Mark Padun, very healthy age structure with Stanislav Anielkowski as their other main man. They've got a young and upcoming talent in Andriy Ponomar, who should be the next classics guy for them. But apart from that, the team, I feel like, has lost some substance over the past years. Of course, there are riders like Roman Gladic, Yuri Vasiliev, Martin Papanov, of course, Zuzu, the legend, Andrea Fenomanana, fantastic rider, fantastic name. But still, I am concerned that the team lacks scorers apart from Padun and Angelkovsky. Roman Lucishin always had the odd race out where he did well, but he's not been the outstanding guy. And with Padun, I honestly have some questions. I used to be a big fan, but again, my flat and sprint concerns with him. I'm also, the time trial limits his race selection. Anielkowski could be a little hit and miss. He's got all the tools to be good, but first of all, he's got no lead out in case he needs one. And second of all, it's not ensured that he's very good. I think with Team Popo Forever, they are not in the sense that they are completely in trouble, but I wouldn't rule them out as, and I probably would get flamed if I put them in danger territory. They are probably more solid mid-table, but it's not. It's close. They need to watch their backs, in the sense that it's despite having Padun, won't be easy to ensure their stay. Although they'll probably benefit from the lack of stage races this year, from the top class of stage races. Another team that should bank on this is the team UBS, the Swiss team of bushwhackers, one of the most long-standing teams in the game. They've got Caio Godoy and Emanuel Buchmann as their main guys. Both of them established scorers. You know what you can expect from them. You can be sure that they deliver to an extent that they need to deliver. They have Patrick Müller as the hill support guy. He's honestly not great, but should benefit from Emanuel Buchmann. They also have Madushanka Pereira as a sprinter, who's on pretty high wage. I would have said wasted wage 2 years ago, looking at what he delivered as results since then. He's probably alright. So, the team thrives through their mainstay. Johan Jacobs is a rider that will give them plenty of top 10s and probably no top 3s, which is alright at a 115k wage price tag. I think the team is very top heavy, but they're built around that. Bushwhackers knows what they're doing. The team time trial squad is good enough. They've got plenty of fitting riders there with Haugard, with Delier. Barbio is a cool rider. I think they're the definition of a solid team. I don't think they'll be too crazily going to the top or downwards, but they should be all right with the squad. Yeah, to me, solid mid-table team. You know what you get with Team UBS. And then finally we have Trig Eni. Yeah, and that team is, looking at the leaders, one of the best teams there is. Arno Demar, he's declined. He should still be a top 10 scorer. It depends a lot on what the engine considers him to be. I would argue he's great. He's still great. He's probably the last year of being great. We've seen back then, I've had with Marco Kump a pretty similar rider to what Demar can do now. He was great with those stats in Pro Conti Tour. Demar is even better. I think Demar will be, if they use him well, which seems like it's the way how they build with Honoré and with riders like Fred Wright, that should complement him well. I like what they did. I think they could have used Heli Sprinter with lower acceleration to support Demar. But that's all right. Interestingly, now Tobias Halland Johannessen should by far be the best youth classification climber. I have to recheck that. And he also has all the tools of being good right now. So Leaf Warrior has a real weapon on his side with Tobias Halland Johannessen. They also have Michael Schlegel, who's disappointed me a little in Conti Tour, but can find his races. You should separate him from Tobias Halland Johannessen, in my opinion. But if you can do that, he's a good asset. Not the one that gives you podiums, but alright. I'm not sure if Alexander Ovsyannikov received cobbles training. If he did, then kudos to Leaf Warrior, because I think he could be an underrated guy if only they would have put some cobble of any sort onto his support. I think that Fred Wright will be good, but they could have really used somebody that hands him the bottles in the cobbled races. Because, to be honest, with the stats that Ovsyannikov has, he could be a top 5 cobbler if he'd have the right support. Because in all those semi-classics, nobody will beat him in a sprint after the cobbles. So he would be fantastic for those races. So it's a little bit of a shame that they do not have a good support for Ovsyannikov. They got some nice sprinters in Rodenberg. I'm not really sure what the role of Kasper Pedersen in this team will be. Maybe the lead out for Demar, but I don't really see the fit. Same for Fabio Silvestre. He's probably the Demar lead out. But if they would have swapped one of their they're Danish riders, so it's cool that they're there. But if they would have swapped one of their sprinters like Rodenberg and Pedersen for a versatile cobbled guy that can sprint and can get over the hills. For example, a guy like, if they would have instead got Tim Merlier or something, swapping Merlier for Rodenberg, that could have probably benefited both teams really well in the division. I think Trygg is an outside candidate to probably win if they work Demar and Johannessen really well, and Ovsyannikov. But I have my doubts at this point. However, looking at the schedule, I would put Elko on top, then Sony, and probably Trygg also in this category. And then I will likely need to move up a couple of teams, given that we finished the. Well, let's put Trygg in. No, let's put Trygg there. Let us recheck all the teams and figure out whether we like what we've seen. We start with the climbers, and Padun is on top of the climbers lists. And then Olivier, Sam Omen, Caio Godoy. It's plenty of depth in terms of climbers, but nobody that really stands out. Adam Yates, likely the one for McCormick. That looks really good. They could probably move up a couple of places in here. And then Popo Forever, maybe one place up or something with Padun if they can use them. But really, Olivier is the guy for Sony that can be good. Some Omen. If you compare, interesting for this range of long shots, how does Sam Omen work for Liège in comparison to, let's say, Louis Meintjes? And if you compare them head to head, then I see why Omen should be the better rider. But we'll have to figure that out. I think we'll leave it like this, and we have to put Lierse and Bralirva a little up there to the promotion range, and then maybe promote UBS. To the long shots. Well, probably more like this. And then let us check, for example, the hills. There we have Minions with a strong team. Yeah, they're probably good in the long shot category. Another Coyote has McCarthy, Buchmann, and Benoit. Buchmann could work really well for UBS. Robert Stannard for Everesting. I feel like I've maybe underestimated Everesting a little in this whole thing when I did them. But Stannard has the potential to be the best puncher of the division. If you compare him head to head to Kinoshita, I really like what I see with Rob Stannard. Aiden Van Niekerk, also good for Isa Hexacta. And then Mark Hirsch, he already looks good for Sauber. They could maybe move up a little, but I like them there. Yeah, probably this works right now. For the time trial lists, we have Dekar Jalgiris here really working well. Eddie Dunbar for Indosat, of course, being a very good candidate. And then we have Sony Force India with 2 guys up here. They are looking really good, to be honest. They may even overtake Elko in the ranking, but I like what Elko's doing. They've also got this time trial depth. If you go by cobbles, we do not have a strong cobbler class. Yuri Stallard should still be the best one, but look at Ovshanikov. I don't see a lot of riders that can really drop him. Yeah, Specialized there. Lierse has a good guy. Yeah, I like what I see from Yuri Stallard, especially here. In terms of sprinters, this is stacked. This is really stacked. I think this may have to be the best sprint competition in years in the Pro Conti Tour. I would say that Brian Coquard may have a tough time, especially as Isa Hexacta seems to be better prepared in terms of sprinters, in terms of the train for Caleb Ewan. Yeah, probably overrated the teams with good sprinters a little. But yeah, we'll figure that out. And then finally, let's check for these weird guys like the prologue guys, cool flat guys that you could use, maybe some hilly sprinters that look particularly interesting, like Ackermann, like Christopher Lagan, like Rui Oliveira. But well, that should be about it. I think it works this way. Maybe surprising outcome, but Elko, the team that I would right now in a very, very open race, can see winning it all. I also like Sony and Trick. I like what Isa and Indosat can do, though I'm not quite sure if the upside is there to win it all. And then there's plenty of teams that can do really well. But this has also gone on for quite some time. We're at 1 hour and 23. It's time for me to shut my mouth and to have you listen to the whole thing. If you're still there, thank you so much for listening. If not, then I can't blame you. So let's see each other with the Proto Preview next time. And thank you so much. Have a nice day.